Hi, folks. Let's face it. After a night of having a couple of drinks, I don't bounce back like I used to. And in fact, these are the times where I actually need to bounce back like I used to. So what do? Well, instead of deciding whether or not I'm going to have a fun night with a couple of drinks or a functional next day, I use Zbiotics. Zbiotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, invented by PhD scientists to help you feel better the morning after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Zbiotics produces an enzyme which breaks this byproduct down. All you got to do, remember to make Zbiotics your first drink of the night. Tiny little bottle like this. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. We all do that, like when we're doing like a late night thing here, coverage, debates. We have a couple. We all drink it. If I have some night that I know I'm going to go out, I'm going to a party, which rarely happens, but maybe like a small get-together. I have it and it works. And then the next day I can do the show, or I can, occasionally exercise when I can convince myself to do that. But it's not because I don't feel well. It's because I have a lack of will. But nevertheless, Zbiotics has been there saving me in many instances. Stay in the loop. Go to zbiotics.com/majority. Use the code majority at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using that code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or occasion. Zbiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Zbiotics.com/majority, 15% off. So it's zbiotics.com/majority. Use the code majority at checkout. You will get 15% off. Thank you, Zbiotics, for sponsoring this episode, making it possible for me to go out and have a couple of drinks and then be able to do the show the next day. Speaking of which, here's the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Zohran Mamdani. He is a candidate for mayor of New York City. Also, currently state assemblyman for New York's 36th district. It's in Queens. Then Rebekah Van Dyke, medical surgical nurse, union steward, and strike captain with the Oregon Nurses Association, and Christie Sowards, nurse and member of that same Oregon Nurses Association bargaining team that are involved in negotiations with Providence Health. Over 5,000 nurses in Oregon on strike. Also on the program today, AG nominee Pam Bondi. Hearings in the Senate today. Pay to play Bondi. We will be talking about her a little bit. Gaza ceasefire deal reportedly imminent. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau sues Capital One for cheating customers out of $2 billion. I wonder if that upsets Elon Musk and Mark Andreessen. SEC sues Musk over non-disclosure and purchase of Twitter. Wonder if that upsets Elon Musk or Zuckerberg. EPA bans red dye number 3. Tough time for Skittles fans. Trump to create an extended external reserve service to pretend like tariffs won't raise prices on U.S. consumers. Democrats to get an amendment process to that reactionary Laken-Riley Act. House passes anti-trans bill over school sports. Justice Dems gears up to do primary challenges against Democrats. Gas costs drive inflation up a tick. Winds pick up in L.A. as fires still being battled. The Supreme Court to hear a Texas anti-pornography law case today. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It is, even though it is Hump Day, Emma is off today. We got a lot to get to. We got those Pam Bondi hearings. We'll probably give you. So far, I've yet to see, and to be fair, I've been dipping in and out of it, and so I'm going to review later. But Pam Bondi's biggest problem is that she has an extended history as the Attorney General in Florida of basically backing off cases, firing prosecutors who are going after corporate malfeasance if those corporate malfeasancers become corporate benefactors of hers. And this is a problem because she's been working for a law firm that represents a ton of corporations that have all sorts of antitrust cases in front of the DOJ, other investigations in front of the DOJ. And this is all, I mean, this is the pay to play administration. And she is sort of the perfect encapsulation of that. You know, people were asking why I wasn't so alarmed at Matt Gaetz as the potential DOJ. It was because I mean, it wasn't that I wasn't alarmed about him, but I had a feeling the next person would be in some respects worse than Gaetz. And Bondi is that person. She is completely pay to play. She was investigating Trump University until she got 25 grand from Trump in her campaign coffers. Just to give you a sense of that. They never went through with the investigation.
Found what she was looking for.
Exactly. Exactly. I know this $25,000 is around here somewhere. Oh, here it is. And God knows what, man, that, you know, God knows what other benefits she received from that aside from campaign contributions. We will get into that Bondi stuff probably over the next day or so. Meanwhile, it still looks like Republicans on the Armed Services Committee are going to vote to confirm Pete Hegseth. This is after he was eviscerated on about every single point that you would want for someone to get eviscerated. I mean, you know, I keep talking about Senator, I think it was John Towers, who, because of his womanizing and drinking, was prevented from taking over the Secretary of Defense. And here's Mark Wayne Mullen. There's two things. There's two issues, right, with Hegseth. Well, maybe there's three. One is the guy has some very, very credible allegations of sexual assault from women, not the least of which, or let's put it this way, abuse of women, broadly speaking, and sexual assault in a couple of instances. One of the people to accuse him of being abusive towards women was his mom. Now, she recanted, but she wrote it down. But then, of course, there's the drinking. Now, he's promised he's not going to drink, but I got news for you. Like, if someone has to promise not to drink on the job, it raises some issues about their capacity to not drink on the job. But here's Senator Mark Wayne Mullen defending Hegseth on that account after Mullen said, like, well, some senators come in here drunk once in a while at night to take a vote. Now, I just want you to think about what's involved in a senator taking a vote. His staff says, or her staff says, you're voting no on this. And he's like, right, voting no on this. I mean, it's not just like they just get told by their staff, but they think about it, obviously, and they converse. And so you come in and you go, nay. That's it. Okay.
And even saying like senators come in drunk, meaning like there's a reason they're coming in at night for a specific reason.
Right. I mean, I'm sure it happens.
Yeah.
I've been, we've done this show occasionally at night where we drink a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that doing this show or voting yay or nay is the equivalent of running the largest money suck in the world. But that's the point. Here's Mark Mullen.
How is the bad behavior of a sitting senator a defense of someone who wants to run the Pentagon?
It's not. What they were saying is he was incapable of doing his job. And Caitlin, what I was trying to get to is if you're capable of doing your job and you're able to still drink on the job or late in the evening, then don't tell me that Pete can't. And Pete had already said
wait a second. Okay, see, this is first of all, Caitlin, it's not about a bad behavior here. This is not a moral question. It's a question of really like, how well functioning can you be if you have to promise not to drink on the job?
Also, like one of the drinking stories was him saying like, what, death to Muslims? Or
yeah, just one of the questions. But it's also, a lot of the drinking stories are like, he's drinking like 3 martinis in the morning. He's drinking on set. Now, look, there is no doubt you can do your job as a TV host if you're drinking.
Yeah.
It's been, Dean Martin made a whole career out of it, for God's sakes. Foster Brooks, a name from the past. But the bottom line is that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about a one-off come in and take a late night vote. But here he is, trying to justify his comments.
It's not. What they were saying is he was incapable of doing his job. And Caitlin, what I was trying to get to is if you're capable of doing your job and you're able to still drink on the job or late in the evening, then don't tell me that Pete can't. And Pete had already said he's not going to drink, but they just kept hammering it. Pete is qualified to do the job. He's a combat veteran. He's 20-year combat veteran. He's been under fire. He's pulled his own friends out of a combat zone. He's had to bury his own friends that's got killed in combat. The guy has bled. He has sweat.
Pause it now. Okay. Does that mean that every single soldier, Marine, naval serviceman, servicewoman, Air Force, like, are all these people qualified to run the Defense Department?
Here's a suggestion. Put all those people as qualified as Hegseth's name in a hat and just pick one of them out.
I mean, that's a lot of people, right?
I prefer any of them to Hegseth. Honestly.
I mean, that is a lot of people. In fact, I bet you could find at least one who would say, like, I don't even drink.
I've never been accused of rape. There's no NDAs.
There's no NDAs.
I may or may not know about.
No. I just don't like to drink. So I just don't.
I've never said kill all Muslims in a bar.
I don't have to promise not to drink at the job because I just don't drink. I bet you could find at least one person in the service. It's an interesting for qualifications. But let's go to this other clip because this is really more to the point. Hegseth, in addition to have not bankrupting, that's the wrong word, running a 150% deficit in the two organizations that he ran within a much tinier budget, incidentally.
He might be right at home at the Pentagon.
In addition to his inability to run an organization, it also turns out he doesn't have a damn clue about some of the more basic stuff that the Secretary of Defense should just know before they take the job. I'm sure there's a certain amount of on-the-job learning you could do for the biggest budgeted agency in maybe the history of the world, but you should probably know some of the biggest, military alliances, it seems to me.
You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know we have allies in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, trying to work on submarines with them.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those countries are in ASEAN.
Across.
None of those three countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations. Listen.
Can we just go back to the look on his face when he finds out that none of the countries now, ASEAN, I guess it sounds like you get a sense of this has got to be East Asia.
I mean, it's kind of a clue for the right answer. But...
Yeah, no, I mean, and credit for knowing that it sounds like it's in that area. He didn't say listen, I've been to Mexico. I went to Tulum and Cancun on spring break. I actually once flew over, I went to the Dominican Republic and Costa Rica. Okay, so credit there. ASEAN is made up of Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, and the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. East Timor is apparently set to join soon. Now, I'm going to be clear. I did not know that. I could not have named all of those countries, which is one of the reasons, besides the fact that I don't drink at work, that I'm not applying for the job of Secretary of Defense. But let's just watch his face when he hears he has no idea what he's talking about.
With Australia, trying to work on submarines with them.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those countries are in ASEAN.
Across.
None of those three countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework.
He gives a look well, there you have it. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. I'm pretty sure I didn't say they were in ASEAN. I just said that I visited those countries.
I am naming all the countries that are around ASEAN.
Yes. I'm displaying the fact that I understand that there are important countries that exist in that part of the world. I don't think I need to get so specific with things.
It's crazy that reading a teleprompter on Fox News did not prepare him for. Honestly, it's not that in-depth knowledge. You should have known it was Southeast Asia.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, this is. I don't know. I gotta feel major sort of now, to be fair, ASEAN has only been around now for 60 years. So,
yeah.
But there it is. Let's put it this way. What would be disqualifying? What would be disqualifying? The guys run two non-for-profits with a budget so tiny and a deficit that if he ran the same deficit at the Pentagon in the Defense Department, it would double the size of the budget minimum. He would be off by $1 trillion. $1 trillion if he runs the same percentage deficit. $1 trillion.
I'm sure that responsibility is going to make it easy to stay off the bottle.
So pedantic. Yeah, exactly. I don't feel any pressure at all. I can handle this. This isn't anything like going on Fox and the Friends on a weekend morning. If I can handle that, I can handle this. A couple words from our sponsor, then Zohran Mamdani will join us. He is running for mayor, member of the DSA. Oh, shit, I just saw that. Okay, we'll be quick here. Sorry. Ever heard of a data broker? They're the middlemen collecting and selling all those digital footprints you leave online. They can stitch together detailed profiles, which include your browsing history, your online searches, your location data. Data broker then sells your profile off to a company that delivers you targeted ads. No biggie, right? Well, you'll be surprised to learn that some of these data brokers are also, shockingly, I'm really surprised, selling your information to the Department of Homeland Security. And I, for one, don't feel too comfortable about that. You can protect yourself with ExpressVPN. I want to thank ExpressVPN for supporting the Majority Report. Here's the deal. Visit expressvpn.com/majority. You get an extra 4 months free. One of the easiest ways for data brokers to track you is through your device's unique IP address, which reveals information about your location. With ExpressVPN, your IP address is hidden. That makes it much more difficult for data brokers to monitor, track, and monetize your private online activity. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network traffic to keep you safe from hackers when you're on public Wi-Fi. That's why I feel comfortable using the Wi-Fi at the airport, folks. ExpressVPN works on all your devices, phone, laptop, tablet, you just name it. And here's the best part about it. One tap. Boom. You're done. Tap it and forget it. It's that easy. Protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/majority. That's expressvpn.com/majority. You can get an extra 4 months free. expressvpn.com/majority. Also, sponsoring the program today, the best honey you've ever tasted. I know that's very weird to say, but Manakora honey, made from the Manuka tea tree in New Zealand, is literally the best honey you can ever taste. It has the consistency of caramel. It tastes like, honestly, like nothing I've ever had before. And I'm now I'm making teas with it. I'm making toast with it. Saul likes a little bit on his grapefruit. I take these compostable sticks they have. I just pop one of those when I want a little bit of sweetness, but also it's incredibly healthy for you too. It is produced by Manakora's master beekeepers in New Zealand. Manakora honey contains powerful nutrients to support immunity and gut health. It's from the nectar of the Manuka tree. The nectar is packed with bioactives, and honey that is produced has 3 times more antioxidants and prebiotics than your average honey. It's got a special antibacterial compound called MGO, which again comes from the nectar of the tea tree. Manakora third-party tests every single harvest for MGO and makes these results available through their QR system and right on the labels of the bottles. It's a game changer. All you need is 1 heaped teaspoon each morning to get the most out of the amazing bioactives in Manuka. Additional usage throughout the day, of course, is completely fine, and I would add, delicious. Thanks to Manakora for supporting the Majority Report. Now it's easier than ever to try Manakora honey. Head to manakora.com/majority. Get $25 off the starter kit, which comes with an MGO 850 plus Manuka honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, which are great for the kids' lunch, and a wooden spoon and a guidebook. That's MANUKORA. MANUKORA.com/majority for $25 off your starter kit. Link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. And now, quick break. We'll be right back with Zohran Mamdani. He is a state assemblyman for New York's 36th district, candidate for New York mayor. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program Zohran Mamdani, State Assemblyman from New York's 36th District, candidate for New York Mayor. I should also, full disclosure, you are my daughter's choice for mayor of New York City. I will remain neutral for this interview, but I got a full disclosure right there. She'd be mad. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. I was actually going to announce that endorsement later in the interview. But thank you.
All right. Well, I scooped you. So, all right, Zohran, just tell us a little bit of your background. You're State Assemblyman for New York's 36th District. You've been a member of the DSA since 2017, and that predates, obviously, your running and your endorsement from them. Just give us fill in a little bit of those gaps for us.
Yeah, well, my political journey in some ways begins with Bernie's 2016 run, which gave me the language to describe myself as a democratic socialist. And the year after that, I began getting more involved with DSA here in New York City and started to work on a city council campaign in southern Brooklyn for a Palestinian Lutheran minister named Khadr El-Yatim. And that was a campaign that transformed my life. And since then, became more and more involved with the organization, working on multiple campaigns, becoming a housing counselor, working with low to moderate income New Yorkers facing foreclosure, and eventually running to be the state assembly member of Astoria and Long Island City here in Northwest Queens. And in the time that I've been in the assembly, I have worked on issues affecting the fact that our city is becoming incredibly unaffordable for the very people who built it. In 2021, I worked closely with the New York Taxi Workers Alliance, standing alongside thousands of taxi drivers who'd been sold a dream by the city of New York, going on 45 days of consecutive protest with them, organizing 5 fellow elected officials to get arrested in active civil disobedience, and eventually going on a 15-day hunger strike with those drivers, winning on November 3rd of that year, $450 million of debt relief. And that is the first year of my time in the assembly.
And we should say, I mean, that was an amazing sort of campaign to help out these taxi drivers who there was a little, I don't know if bait and switch is the best description of it, but it was pretty close. I mean, they ended up getting roped into these very expensive medallions. Meanwhile, the entire industry was undercut and cut out from underneath them by the, gig economy like Uber and Lyft and whatnot. And then a lot of these guys were just absolutely trapped in enormous amounts of debt.
I mean, I would say that bait and switch is fair and frankly kind, considering what this city did to taxi drivers. Under Michael Bloomberg's administration, the city identified medallions as a potential source of revenue to make up a budget shortfall, and intentionally jacked up the price of a medallion to levels that they knew drivers would never be able to repay, eventually seeing costs go close to $1 million when they had previously been hovering around or a little below $200,000. And then on top of that, as you said, flooding the market with Lyft and Uber cars, which have decimated the ability for these drivers to collect fares, all while welcoming lenders into the market, the same lenders that we had said could not operate in the housing market because of their culpability in the financial crash, now saying you can actually do business with immigrant taxi drivers across New York City, leading to an average debt amount of $550,000. And this is something that wasn't news. You grow up in the city, you know about this. You saw 9 drivers over the years take their own lives because they were living through a life of debt peonage. And what was so exciting is getting a chance to work alongside the union to finally win the relief that these drivers deserved and bring that average debt down by hundreds of thousands of dollars, eliminating balloon payments, giving people fixed amounts they have to pay, and ensuring that if they do default, then these lenders can't take their homes, which is what was happening to so many of the drivers.
All right. And there's something similar a little bit on the it's not quite as, I think, sort of extreme that's happening on the sort of the food vendor market, as it were. But before we get there, let's start with what you see as, and you've alluded to it in terms of like the affordability of housing, but is that what you perceive to be the biggest A, issue that New Yorkers have, and B, that you want to tackle as mayor?
I think it is the top issue for New Yorkers. And what we see is that for the New Yorkers who leave our city and our state, they are far from the caricature we've been told of wealthy individuals searching for tax havens. In fact, they are working class New Yorkers who are being driven out by the cost of housing. And it's gotten to the point where even Governor Kathy Hochul in her State of the State just yesterday said from the stage that the rent is too damn high. And I think that speaks to what New Yorkers are suffering through. And it speaks to why we have built our entire campaign around making New York City more affordable with 3 concrete policies to begin with. The first, freezing the rent for every rent stabilized tenant. There are more than 2 million or close to 2.5 million New Yorkers who live in units that used to be the bedrock of economic security under previous city administrations. They have a median household income of $60,000 a year. But Eric Adams has subjected them to rent hike after rent hike after rent hike. The second thing, to make buses fast and free, taking the slowest ones in the nation, making them a model for the country. And the third, delivering on the second issue of cost for most New Yorkers, which is childcare, making universal childcare a reality.
How would you go about, like, you know, in terms of the rent freeze? I mean, that seems like something the mayor can do on day one, like literally. And in terms of the buses and the MTA and the childcare, what's the processes for that?
Absolutely. So to what you said on the rent, you're right. This is firmly within the mayor's jurisdiction because the rent for these units is set by a board called the Rent Guidelines Board. It has 9 members, and each of them are appointed exclusively by the mayor. 8 of them right now, their terms are up and could be replaced tomorrow. And that's what I would do, because I would identify New Yorkers who could serve on that board, who would be willing to make determinations on the basis of reality, which is the fact that tenants are suffering and landlords are doing fine. And that's actually borne out in statistics from the board itself as of March of last year. On the question of buses and universal childcare, you know, the mayor of New York City has probably the second largest bully pulpit in America. And every mayor gets a list of items they can fight for in Albany that they go up for on an annual basis. We saw Bill de Blasio use that opportunity to win universal pre-K and then 3K. We saw this mayor instead use that opportunity to try and roll back civil rights protections successfully over multiple years. What I would do is go to Albany with the clear and concise list of making buses free for New Yorkers and bringing about universal childcare. And I'm confident that we'd be able to do so because I've already seen as an assembly member deep interest across the ideological divide on these issues, most especially on free buses, where we launched a campaign called Fix the MTA, where we won a free bus pilot, making one bus route in each borough free, funded by the state. And so I see an immense amount of interest if you had someone of the power of the mayor putting themselves full-throated behind that demand.
What's the theory on the free buses? Like, what is that? How does that increase the affordability? I mean, obviously the direct implications of no fare, but what else does it do in terms of making it more affordable for New Yorkers?
So to start, I would say that it's important we recognize that the fare $2.90 is out of reach for about 1 in 5 New Yorkers. That's what has been reported thus far, and that'll likely increase when the fare also is set to increase to $3 this upcoming summer. And what we found is that those very New Yorkers who we have targeted with means-tested programs are actually not applying to those programs because they have been failed by bureaucracy before, and it's very hard to convince them to trust that very bureaucracy again. And when we made these 5 routes free across New York City, what we saw is that ridership went up by 30%, and the majority of those new riders were making $28,000 a year or less, all of whom eligible for that program, only 14% of whom had actually applied to it, showing the importance of a universal approach. Second, we saw that there's a massive public safety implication here. When you made those 5 routes free, you saw a drop in assaults on bus drivers by 38.9%. And that mirrored almost exactly what we saw when Kansas City made their buses free, where they saw a drop in assaults on bus drivers by 39%. And finally, there's the environmental impact here. We desperately need to get people to use public transit more than they want to use a car for many different reasons, but one of them is also environmental. And the way that we do that is making it easy for them to do so. And we saw that in this pilot, 11% of new riders got out of their car, got out of a taxi, and took the bus instead. If we expanded this citywide, we would be seeing an incredible result for every single New Yorker, not just the ones lucky enough to be on those routes.
While we're talking about transportation and the sort of like the impact, I mean, I think for, for some people, it may be hard to, appreciate when you're talking about $6 a day, $30 a week, 120 bucks a month in terms of travel. And, and then over the course of a year, people could do their own math there, but I think it comes around $1,300, $1,400 for someone who's making $28,000 a year. That's a big chunk of their income. But what's your sense of congestion pricing and how it's been impacted? It's been now, 2 or 3 weeks. And I feel like walking down Flatbush, I can tell the difference in the morning as to how many cars are going in there. And I'm watching, the numbers seem to be up on the subway. I'm watching also, videos of people saying like, what used to take me 45 minutes to get into the city now, it takes me like 10 minutes. And I'm saving that money, the $9 I'm spending to get in, I'm saving because I'm getting an extra hour and a half to work essentially.
Yeah, I had a friend send me a video last night, a friend who has been a skeptic at times of congestion pricing, sending me a video of a guy who himself was a skeptic, but found that he was saving money on the parking that he used to pay because there was far fewer cars even on street parking now across Manhattan's central business district. I have been someone who has supported congestion pricing primarily out of the fact that the vast majority of working class New Yorkers who travel into Manhattan do so using public transit. And they deserve a public transit system that is well funded. And they also deserve to have a streetscape that has fewer cars on the road because of the congestion that is throttling New Yorkers who are sitting in traffic. We've seen ourselves in the top 3 cities in the world in terms of how long we spend in traffic, but also for bus riders, right? 1 million New Yorkers ride the bus every day. And there are parts of the central business district where the average speed of a bus is around 5 miles an hour. And we're seeing reports that a lot of those buses, their speed is increasing in a significant way for any of them that are having any part of their route be in Manhattan, even buses that are spending the majority of their route in Queens because now they're not throttled on the bridge. And I launched a program last year in Albany called Get Congestion Pricing Right, saying that what we needed to do is follow the example of cities like Stockholm and London. When they implemented congestion pricing, they paired it with immediate service improvements, because what New Yorkers need to see is that this is a price worth paying. And I'm excited that we're starting to see that. I'm also excited that we won more than $12 million in additional bus service for New Yorkers to be paired with congestion pricing that the governor has rolled out. But we need more. We need to make it clear that we will have world-class public transit, that although it is more affordable to be in this city than anywhere in the country when it comes to how much you spend on transit, it is still not affordable enough. And I think that's, again, it just goes back to the heart of this campaign, which is how do we make the city more affordable for working class people? And I've laid out a few of the proposals, but we've also since put in an additional one, which is for a pilot program of city-run grocery stores, where we'd open one grocery store in each borough, guaranteeing lower prices for New Yorkers, all while they're being price gouged by corporate supermarkets for eggs and for milk and for bread. We could deliver them a price they could actually afford, and do so by taking profit out of that equation and passing on the savings that you don't have to pay in rent and property taxes as a city institution.
What do you think has been the most consequential sort of like policy rolled out in the past, let's say 15, 20 years in New York City?
The most consequential policy. I mean, I think the 2019 rent laws in Albany were incredibly consequential for New Yorkers living across the 5 boroughs, because what they did is provide stability to New Yorkers' lives and ensure that there were finally protections for a significant number of New Yorkers who had previously been subject to harassment of every kind by their landlord. And I think at a city level, we have to look at Bill de Blasio's universal pre-K program. Yep. That is one that has been transformative for New Yorkers, and it has showcased the incredible importance of a universal approach that can save New Yorkers around $20,000 a year, and also create a firmer social safety net and a larger sense that we are all part of this same city, as opposed to means testing our way out of every single issue that we see in front of us.
I still am amazed at how poorly de Blasio did in touting that, and how little attention it got for the implications of it, because you're not only like you say, sometimes $10,000, $15,000 annually you're saving New Yorkers, but you're also getting kids into preschool as opposed to daycare, and so they're actually they're starting their educational careers on parity, because we know that low income kids enter into kindergarten often with literally tens of thousands of vocabulary word deficit that they are making up in this. I don't even know if we've done any real studies to see the implications, but and obviously things got screwed up with COVID, so that might make it harder to assess that stuff. But the impact of that proposal, I just think is stunning.
It is, and I think it's also, to your point, it's an example of what government can do if it puts its mind to it. And I think we have sadly been living through many years where it seems as if not only is there the ability to execute, but whether there's even an interest in providing more for working class New Yorkers is up for debate. And de Blasio didn't just foreground the importance of this. He fought for it and won it through additional funding from Andrew Cuomo.
No, it was a huge battle. I mean, Cuomo was such an ass about it, with all due respect to Cuomo fans. Although I don't know what you're doing here. While we're on it, tell us about, you have a baby basket policy. What is that policy?
So this is a policy building on the 91 programs we're seeing across the world, where governments provide the parents of a newborn child with a basket or a box. And what we are putting forward is a program to give every single New Yorker who is born across the 5 boroughs, to give their family a baby basket that both has the instructions for those parents as to how they should be raising their child and the materials that they need to actually raise that child. And we've seen incredible impacts of this in a pilot program that was actually done by the federal government, where we saw an increase in the mental health of many of those parents, as well as a greater sense of trust with government institutions. And Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso rolled out a pilot of this in Brooklyn, serving about 500 families. And it was incredibly impactful. And what we're proposing to do is expand this to every single New Yorker across the 5 boroughs, and to ensure that we actually get it done, because the cost of it is minimal. We're talking about $19 million a year, but the effect of it, especially at a time when we're seeing a continued crisis of maternal mortality, is one that we cannot afford to avoid.
Is there do you have one of those instruction manuals for parents who have maybe a kid in middle school and one in college? Because
I don't want you to scoop our June announcements, but
all right. Well, I'd like to sign up for that one. Let's just talk about a little bit about what makes you, what distinguishes you from. There's about, I don't know, right now I think I've lost count, but somewhere around 6 to 8 people I think have already declared. Obviously, Eric Adams in the race. You do not have the same support from the Turkish government, I understand, as Eric Adams does, or you obviously don't have the number of aides who are being investigated across the board, or any investigations, federal investigations of yourself. So, people can make that assessment in terms of Adams. But what about some of the other folks who are running in the race? There are, we've got several progressives in there. And I should also remind people, we now have ranked choice voting. So there is no concept of splitting the progressive vote after you get to, I guess you get 4 votes. But what distinguishes you from those competitors?
Well, Sam, the first thing I'd say is if I ever come back to this show with a much better hairline, then I think you should ask me directly if I've received any assistance from the Turkish government.
All right. Look.
as of now, nothing, and I do not plan to accept any of that because we're running a campaign, unlike Adams, that is firmly within the confines of the law, and we don't view it as simply a suggestion that we can ignore at times when we want to.
Well, that may be the new baseline. We may do that.
But I think there are a few things that set us apart. One is our relentless focus on making this a more affordable city. The foregrounding of those 3, now 4, now 5 different policy proposals, to the extent that when I meet people across the city, they recite that platform back to me more than they know anything about me or my record. It's about what we are actually fighting for. And I think in many ways that's inspired by Bernie's relentless focus on an economic agenda at a time of immense inequality across the country. I think another point of separation is our fundraising stats. We have just announced as of yesterday that we raised more than $642,000 for more than 6,500 donors. And that has meant that we qualify for the city's matching funds program, which will give us an additional $2.4 million. So we will have all told $3 million just to start to run this race and tell every New Yorker how we're going to make this city more affordable. The other point I would just make is that 84% of our donors are from New York City, and the number one profession was educator. And that speaks to who is actually putting the city on their back right now and who believes in us to do the same as a city government. And of all of the different campaigns, we raised the most in a single filing period. And we also were the first one to qualify for matching funds at the first opportunity. And then to your point about ranked choice voting and progressives, look, this is the only campaign that's calling itself a progressive campaign in the context of the mayor's race. And I've also made very clear to New Yorkers as well as to other candidates, I have no interest in critiquing anyone unless they're a disgraced New York executive, whether current or former. And so other than Eric Adams or Andrew Cuomo, I am looking to work together with all of the other candidates to ensure that we turn the page on Eric Adams' mayoralty, and we do so by putting forward a clear vision for what a New York City would look like that wasn't actually dominated by the austerity politics that we've had to live under.
I mean, between Cuomo and Adams, you could spend multiple campaigns outlining critiques with them. So I can understand. Understand that dynamic. Let me ask you this. It's fascinating to me that educator is your top fundraising thing. A final question: like when we're looking at fundraising in the city, where do you see alarms? Like where does an alarm bell? I mean, you've been a voter, obviously, in New York. When you're looking at who's supporting, and the easiest way to do that is by fundraising. Who's supporting? What sets off alarm bells for you in terms of who might be least likely to protect New York residents' interests?
I think it's those who are least connected to those very New Yorkers. I think about looking at things like a median donation or a number of donors, or whether or not the real estate industry is putting the full force of everything it has behind you. And when I look at our campaign, I see a $50 median donation. I see, about 5,400 New Yorkers. And I have gone to each one of the 5 boroughs, speaking specifically to our donors to ask them, why did you donate to this campaign? And have you donated before? And I met voter after voter who told me they had never donated to a mayoral campaign. And I think that speaks to the fact that we're trying to not only speak to the 25% of Democrats who voted in the mayoral primary in 2021, but also the 75% who stayed home, who didn't see that much to vote for. And we're not blaming New Yorkers for the decisions they've taken thus far. We're actually trying to listen to them and put forward an agenda that speaks to what it is that they're saying. And I think that that's what makes me so confident about the prospect of running against even an Andrew Cuomo. Inevitably, he will raise an incredible amount of money, but he will be raising it from the very kinds of institutions and individuals who are profiting from a city that is so unlivable right now. He will be raising it from people who are willing to turn a blind eye to the fact that this is the same governor who gave us the summer of hell in 2017 on the subways. This is the same governor who spent more money on consultants than construction for the construction of the 2nd Avenue subway, the same governor who cut mental health and hospital beds, and the same governor who is now touting himself as a master builder, having spent more than $1 billion on renovating Penn Station while not building any public seating. That's the governor who I'm looking forward to running against.
Can I also add that Cuomo also was the guy who basically midwifed, what was the IDS? What was the independent? I can't remember the name of that.
Yeah,
IDC.
Which
thwarted every single bit of progressive legislation over the course of, I think it was 8 years, at least in this state, and did it sort of. They could provide a fig leaf for him, where he got a bunch of Democrats, a handful, to basically caucus with the Republicans and thwart every piece of legislation so that he didn't have to veto it and make him, set himself up for ostensibly a presidential run. I could go on and on about Cuomo, and I guess when he jumps into the race, I'm going to have to. But in the meantime, where can folks find out more about your campaign? Where can they, if they want to donate or volunteer, where can they do that?
Please come to ZohranforNYC.com. You can also find me across all social media at Zohran K. Mamdani, and you will find us on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, because we are seeking to speak to every New Yorker, no matter how they actually consume politics or whether they consume it at all. And we can't wait to have your support and your consideration.
All right, we will put links to that, Zohran Mamdani. And I should also say, here's an open invitation for Andrew Cuomo to come on the program, just so that we can play this fair. And we give him an opportunity to make his case.
I'd love to be there for
that. We'll see. We'll see. Thanks so much. We'll put the links to your website, and good luck. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Rebekah Van Dyke and Christie Sowards, both nurses in the Oregon Nurses Association. They're on strike, and they're in negotiations with Providence Health. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland is off today. Joining me now, Rebekah Van Dyke, medical surgical nurse, union steward, strike captain, and Christie Sowards, nurse, member of the Oregon Nurses Association bargaining team, involved in negotiations with Providence Health right now. Christie, let's start with you. How many nurses are a part of the Oregon Nurses Association? How many of them are on strike right now at how many hospitals?
So we've got 8 hospitals and also 6 clinics involved in this. There's about 5,000 nurses, which includes about 180 doctors, clinicians from the women's clinic, and hospitalists at St. Vincent's joining us.
And Rebekah, give us a sense of why you guys are on strike.
We are on strike. No, we're on strike because, first of all, we didn't want it to come to this. I just want to start with that. But we're on strike because we are concerned about safe staffing. We really just need to be able to be competitive with the other hospitals in our region, in our area, so that we can recruit new hires and that we can also retain and respect the talent that we have, so that they don't feel the need to go find opportunities elsewhere where they're getting paid more for the same job.
Give us a sense of what the implications of this are, Rebekah, because I've spoken to many nurses over the past 4 or 5 years who have been on strike. And what I hear is almost always the same, which is around staffing levels. Why is that so important?
It's important because the amount of patients you take care of and how sick and how many needs each patient has really affects your ability to properly care and give them the care that they need and the quality that they deserve as well. For instance, just the other day before the strike, I was on one of our overflow units, and it was just me and one other nurse. We were taking care of 7 patients, and my fellow nurse was in another room taking care of someone. And then at that moment, I had 2 call lights go off. They both needed to go to the bathroom. And I had to choose which one I was going to help out because I didn't have another nurse with me. I didn't have another CNA with me, even though I was supposed to, but our staffing was low. So they had to pull my CNA somewhere else. And I had to choose which person to take to the bathroom. And it's an awful, terrible situation to be in. That's a very mild example, but that happens all the time.
And I think folks can imagine a more dramatic, even a more dramatic example where you're talking about people who are having some form of episode that's going to impact, maybe their health, their life in that instance. Christie, give us a sense of who owns and runs these hospitals. I was surprised to find they're not for profit because, for my hometown, there was the St. Vincent's nurses went on strike in Worcester, Mass. And they were a Catholic hospital that ended up getting bought by a place called Tenet, I think it was. And of course, they want to soak the way they get to profits, the way they get their stock options to go up is to basically cut costs. And for them, the easy way to do it was on labor. What's the dynamic here? Why is there such a staffing problem at this hospital, or these hospitals, I should say?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say, I've got a couple of stats here, but Providence is a $30 billion corporation that is, masquerading as a not-for-profit. They've got top execs making millions of dollars. But what we hear on the line, because I'm not in those offices, what's going on there, but what I'm hearing is constant, how productive are we? What's the productivity here? If I have this many nurses, is that productive based on the patient we have? Which makes no sense to me as a nurse because you can't put a price on patients' care. And I think, I've worked at this hospital specifically within this corporation for probably about 13 years. I've been, a nursing assistant. I've worked at the front desk. So I have a, pretty good view of how things have progressed here. And those conversations seem to just happen more and more where it's well, you can do more with less because it's not productive. And what part of this strike is, and what us nurses are saying, and I think this is something nurses are saying across the country, is we're sounding the alarm that this is not the way to look at healthcare. This is not a way that is, good for patients, patient safety. So they look at their staffing numbers as, well, you're a nurse and here's how productive you are to us. When I am the one that's at the bedside looking my patients in the eye, and they would never dare to say that conversation to them, but they're just fine saying it to me. And I think it's my job specifically as a nurse. And, with all these doctors we've all come together and just decided that it's not okay anymore. And we need to start standing up. And the first way that we do that, within this company is just ensuring that we get staff at our hospitals. We want to be competitive with other hospitals. So you want to stay here because when we build a great team, all of that trickle down helps the patients. But what we're fighting here is productivity.
How do they, it is weird to hear a not-for-profit talk about productivity. I think it surprises people to find out that oh, these executives of a not-for-profit are making huge sums of money. I mean, I can understand you want to be competitive. You want to get the best administrators. But I also would imagine that, like your fellow nurses, there's a cohort of administrators who go into this because they want to help people and don't necessarily need to make millions of dollars at it. But how do they hide? Like, what's the dynamic there? Because it does. I was reading into Providence, and it feels like they have two sort of like parts of Providence, and one that sort of feeds the other in some way. And that's so like one end is for profit, one end is not for profit. Do you have a clearer picture of that?
I think for me as a nurse, on the floor, it's hard I think this is like my first cycle going through bargaining and learning some of these things. And it's been really important for me to know what system I'm a part of, because on the nursing end of it, you don't always know those things. You're not, with this company, there's nothing like, unless I looked it up myself or got involved in it, those are things that I don't know. And I'm trying to figure out why, do these two things, how do they work and feed off of each other? So, when it comes to that, I'd have to get back to you on that as far as, I don't necessarily know the answer here, and maybe Rebekah does. But from a nursing perspective, like I can't stress this enough, is like, you can't put a dollar price on what a patient's experience is going to be and what they need from me. And I think that's like just where we tend to butt heads as caregivers with people with business degrees who have never, ever had to, look somebody in the eye and tell them they're not going to make it, or hug a family member and tell them, try to help them through this. And then in the after effect, trying to like tell us, well, how productive were you during that? I mean, it's just like two separate entities, and causing that separation is what is causing a lot of this friction between all of us. And Rebekah, if you have something to chime in on that, feel free.
Well, something else to point out, in addition to Providence being run it is a corporation being run as a corporation. Providence is also a health insurance company. So that I think also is a big factor into this. Health insurance company that recently this year kicked its employees off of Providence Health Insurance, and they're switching us to Aetna. So that's another thing that we are struggling with and working towards is, I think there's this idea, I had this idea before I became a nurse that, if you're in healthcare, then you have practically free health insurance. You have great health insurance. And at Providence, that is not the case. At some other facilities, Kaiser, I believe, has $0 deductibles for their employees. And, it's not uncommon to hear that people leave us for better opportunities because they need to. I know people stick around because they like the staff. We're a family, but that only goes so far. Nurses had to take care of themselves as well in order to be able to take care of our patients. So,
thank you, Rebekah. Christie, tell how many days have you been on strike? Who's taking care of the patients right now? And how long are you guys prepared to go?
Well, I think it was December 30th, we put in our 10-day notice to go on strike. During that time, Providence has decided to take the stance that they will not bargain with us during that time to get a deal before, because they wanted to find contract workers. So they have replaced about 2,000 of us in the hospitals. Some of the smaller hospitals, we work at a smaller hospital, they seem to be very overstaffed. From what I'm hearing on the inside is just that like they are more staffed than what we have ever been. And they're paying these nurses, over $100 an hour, $7,000 a week for this care. And that's who's in there taking care of the patients. But we have bigger hospitals like St. Vincent's, of which they have kind of diverted patients to other areas and are not opening certain units just to try and, conserve. It's pretty like we don't want to be outside and hearing these things. It's just, I would way rather be taking care of a patient than even doing this interview, if I had to be honest. That's what I'm good at. But it's something that is necessary because this entire, I think like if I think of myself, they send out surveys. We fill out the surveys. What is it like there? I don't know who it goes back to in their corporate world, but we've been sounding the alarm in there for years. And this has just been building. And so we have so much solidarity between all of our hospitals with our hospitalists and doctors, clinicians that are with us, because we all have the same concerns. And so, Providence has been playing games with who they will and who they won't bargain now that we've been out on strike. But I think at this point, we are just in this all together, and we will be outside as long as it takes for Providence to come back with a fair deal that keeps us, competitive with others. We want to keep our staff. We want to be able to hire amazing new workers to help us with, create a better healthcare system for everybody. So if I had to say how long, it's indefinite until Providence can kind of get serious and actually come to us with something that we can work with.
Rebekah, how can folks in the communities where you guys are on strike, how can they help out? How can folks who are, across the country help you guys out with your strike? What can we do? Both those communities, the closer one and the one that's sort of more distant.
Well, the closer ones definitely come join us out on the picket line. If you can, we've got 8 facilities all throughout Oregon. If you're in the Medford area and the Newburgh area, Hood River, definitely the smaller ones, please go show them some love. We also have a GoFundMe up and running to help out the nurses who have stepped out and are dealing with this loss of income, to help them pay their bills, put the food on their table during this time. And also, I would encourage people from all over, pay attention to when your nurses are calling for help and lend them their support. We're trying to make whole systemic changes, not just for nurses, but our healthcare system in overall. So please be a part of that. Please lend your voice. When they send out surveys, do those surveys and show up and lend your support when you can.
So we'll put a link to that GoFundMe with the strike fund there. But where, if there are folks in Oregon and they want to find out, is there a strike going on? Is there a picket line, near me in some way? Is there a site that they can go to find that out or get a sense of when that's happening?
Actually, we're picketing at all the Providence facilities in Oregon, so they could just Google Providence Hospital near me, and it will show which Providence is near them. And they can go to any of them. We've got things going on. We've got ones going on in Milwaukee, Willamette Falls, which is in Oregon City, the Portland area, St. Vincent's, which is in Beaverton. So yeah, just Google a Providence and then head over there.
Great. Rebekah Van Dyke, medical surgical nurse, union steward, strike captain, and Christie Sowards, also a nurse and both members of the Oregon Nurses Association. Thanks so much for your time. We will put a link to that strike fund. Maybe we can even put a link to the Google search. And good luck with the strike. I hope you guys get what you need to do your jobs properly and to take care of patients soon. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break and head into the fun half of the program, wherein we will have fun. Managed to get there at 1:09 today. Getting back to some semblance of sanity. Trying. Folks, it's your support that makes the show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. And when you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, you get the fun half, and you can IM us. And who knows, maybe someday we'll get our act together and give you even more bonuses for being a member. It's possible. Also, justcoffee.coop. It's a co-op. It's coffee. it's not just coffee, it's coffee that is just, because they treat their, it's all fair trade, but more than that, more than just fair trade. This is a co-op. I visited them out in Madison, Wisconsin. They pride themselves. In fact, they built themselves as a way to help out farmers in Chiapas. But they also now get their coffee from, around the world. But when their farmers, their suppliers have a tough go of it, whatever. There was too much rain, there was too little rain, there was too much wind, there was too much heat, whatever. Crops come and go. They never abandon their farmers. They figure out ways of making it work with them, even if they can't supply them with the full amount of coffee that they need to, or they've had a bad crop, whatever it is. It's just a great company because it's a co-op. And the workers care about each other. They care about their suppliers. And here's the bonus. The coffee is amazing. And here's a bonus on top of the bonus. They have a majority report blend. So check it out. JustCoffee.coop. JustCoffee.coop. Also, check out our Discord, majoritydiscord.com. We got what now? 12,000 members? More? It's a great place if you want resources, or you want to go make a comment about movies, or you're trying to organize your workplace. Great place to start. So many great folks who hang out in that Discord, and very, very helpful. So check it out. Also, the AM Quickie. We got a ton of news. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. And the AM Quickie every morning in your email inbox will give you the top stories, just so you have a sense of what's going on and what things are progressing, what horrible things are happening during the course of the day, or happened yesterday, or are going to happen tomorrow. Corey and Jacob do a great job tracking all this stuff. amquickie.com. Check it out. As always, like our stuff on YouTube. Give us your subscription for the month on Twitch. Give us a good review on iTunes. Tell your friends. If you're on Facebook, we're back up on Facebook again now, because of course there's gonna be a ton of disinformation now. So whatever social media platform you're on, Blue Sky, whatever. I don't care about Twitter so much anymore. That place is a dump. It's a dumpster fire. But any of these social media platforms, spread our stuff around. It's helpful and appreciated. And Kowalski from Nebraska says, for legal reasons, do not drink from a fire hose. It will blow a hole through your head. Bradley, what's happening on ESVN?
On ESPN on Monday, we recapped the wild card round of the playoffs, and also discussed some of the coaching news in the NFL. We will be giving our picks for the divisional round of the playoffs coming up this weekend. Tomorrow on ESPN OT, so check that out at youtube.com/ESPN show tomorrow at around 4 p.m.
Matt!
Last night on Left Reckoning, Francesca Fiorentini talking about the fires in LA, and also David and I talked about new data that shows that in the last 30 years, the coupling prevalence has switched from lower income people were coupling more frequently. Now they're coupling less frequently than higher income people. And I think we posited that is a result of neoliberalism. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning to get access to our postgame.
See you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go wow.
What? What is that going on? It's nuts.
Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone? Nomi Key.
You did it.
Fun hat.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Fun hat. Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false. No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single frickin' day. What's on your mind?
Sports.
We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go start.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge met.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35-501. 1 half. 3 8s.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
6, 5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You can call it satire. Sam goes to satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the weak being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. Give me more time than that. Warning. Snarkorsky sent me some beef jerky. Wednesday Child. On average, how many IMs does the Majority Report receive each show? Hundreds. Hundreds. If it's a large amount, yes it is, why not devote the last half of each show to read them? I'm not sure I